Welcome to the Dark Side of Seoul podcast. This is Joe.
This is Sean.
And this week we have guests from What's On Your Mind.
Hey.
Hannah and Allie from What's On Your Mind. See, I'm saying it so that you can really smell my breath.
Yeah.
I say it.
And Joe, I think you said Anna.
Hun.
I think you said Anna.
I said Hannah.
Did you say Hannah? I thought I thought he reserved all of his
Hannah. What's Hannah your mind? What's
We did think about
Hannah
that.
your mind and what's Allie your mind?
Not quite as good, but thank you for trying.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming.
We've been playing this episode for a while.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Very long time.
I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves a little bit. But first, we're going to talk a little about who we are. We're Dark Side of Seoul. We run the Dark Side of Seoul Ghost Walk at darksideofseoul.com. If you can't do the Ghost Walk because coronavirus restrictions, even though we do, well, we're closing that down. We are. I don't know. By the time this comes out, we might be open back up again. We're temporary closing because of the coronavirus flare up. But we do practice safe distancing, safe touring.
Proper social distancing.
Our tour guides wear condoms. There we go.
On tour? Is that company policy?
It's safe tourism,
Joe.
man. Safe tourism.
Okay.
Yeah, we also have the Dark Side of Seoul comic, Weird Tales from Korean Lore, on sale now at darksideofseoul.com. And you should also point out we have a Facebook page, facebook.com/darksideofseoul.
Did we even... Wait, did we cut out for you guys?
You cut out
for a second there.
bit, but it's okay.
Your video cut out. It's fine.
All right.
Oh,
we're back.
okay. We just... Yeah, I don't know why. Sorry about that.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
So,
Hopefully...
but if you're a
He's okay.
Patreon, if you're one of our patrons on Patreon at patreon.com/darksideofseoul for just $5 a month, you can actually see this video of Hannah and Allie coming out.
You missed our faces
Yeah.
for just a second.
Yeah.
We're back. Don't worry.
It's very exciting stuff.
So ladies, please tell us what's on your mind.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce it?
Well, yes, we are Hannah and Allie. I'm Hannah.
I'm Allie.
And, I'm from the UK.
Yeah. I'm from the US.
And we started What's On Your Mind about, nearly a year ago.
Yeah, nearly a year.
We have a website, our own podcast as well, that the guys joined us on.
Yeah,
once.
great episode.
Yeah, that was good. You want to say anything?
Yeah, basically we just try our goal, and the reason we started it is because we felt like we saw a lot of the same stuff over and over on different travel websites, and we felt like a lot of it was stuff that people who've lived here for a long time or native Koreans didn't actually go to. So we kind of wanted to introduce a unique experience in Korea and also a more historical one, because we really enjoy Korean history. So
To kind of provide a little bit more about to provide a bit more for people who already have a prior interest in Korea.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Good.
So more.
And your
So that's us.
That's our goal.
Excellent. Website's very good. What's the web address? So everyone knows.
What's Han Your Mind? That's what's HAN hanyourmind.com.
Yes. You can find us on Instagram too.
And Facebook
And Facebook.
All right.
and Anchor FM is our podcast as well. Everything is What's On Your Mind.
Yeah. Any podcast platform you listen to.
And on top of that, I mean, you're not just some yokels coming into Korea doing a podcast. You actually have academic backgrounds in the topics you're talking about.
Ali does.
Yeah, I have a master's degree in Korean art and archaeology. I'm a specialist in the Joseon Dynasty, particularly the porcelain, but kind of everything.
All right.
and I'm hoping to get my PhD in the next couple years. So keep it.
Okay.
but she knows a lot. You're
I
a
just
lot
like
more
it here.
invested. Yeah, you're a lot more invested than most people.
All right.
Yeah,
Cool.
well, yeah, it's all about your focus, right? So you do a lot of research, and your content on your site and the podcast will definitely vouch for that. So everyone check out the website. It's just full of information. So much stuff on there.
All right. I'm gonna stop there.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna stop right now. I'm gonna let you guys.
Thank you.
Could we hang up on you guys and you come back because I think you have a bad connection right now.
Yeah. You've been cutting in and out, and your screen's frozen right now.
They're dead.
And they're dead. Oh, shit. Okay. That was
gone.
kind of what was happening to you on Friday. Did you listen back? There they are.
No, I haven't listened again.
We're trying to move.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay.
We're trying to move closer to the router, but I mean, like, this has never happened before, so I don't really. Can you
Sometimes
take your-
it's a matter of just reconnecting.
Yeah. I have to get my phone. Sorry, you're able to edit this, right?
No, this is going in the show.
Live.
Okay, sorry. I know we all want to go to bed early. Hold on.
Patrons might see it.
Like when we were chatting shit, it was fine, but now it's.
Yeah, they're packeting. This is something Skype would do all the time.
Yeah, and I'm a bit. That's worrying because, like I said, yeah, like you were doing that a bit on Friday. Just twice, but not nearly as bad as that.
Let
Just
me
a couple
double
of
check
times.
to see if the problem is me.
You're talking about rain?
No, when we recorded an episode on Friday, whenever it was, I think it was Friday.
Yeah.
Joe's signal was cutting it out. Just not as bad as what just happened, but a couple of times.
You guys don't live near each other, right?
No,
Not near enough.
not near enough.
Oh,
Oh.
best friends. Let me turn this on.
You
How's
guys
the
live near
light?
each other,
Okay,
right?
Yeah, it's better.
Mary.
Oh,
Cat rearrangement.
Okay. I can't hear anything, so I'm just like, okay, hopefully this is better.
Okay.
I have no idea where we left off.
Just the introductions, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we start that again, or should we just?
I'll ask you one more
Or-
time. I'll ask you one more time what your website is, what your podcast
Okay.
is. Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right. Do this to a signal for myself. All right. There we go. So tell us a little more about what's on your mind.
Tell us about it, or tell us
Yeah, yeah,
how to find it.
What it's about, where you can find it. Both.
so you can find us at What's Han Your Mind. That's Han HAN .com. That's our website, and you can get us on Facebook, Instagram, and also Anchor FM. That's where we have our podcast. Everything is What's on Your Mind. Mm-hmm. Would you like to tell them what we do?
Yeah, so basically we kind of designed our website to introduce like a more authentic and a more historical Korea, not only for the people like who are coming for the first time, but people who want to know a little bit more. We felt like a lot of the websites and kind of bloggers kind of introduce the same places over and over again, and they're not often places that people who live here actually go to. So we just kind of want to provide like, yeah, I guess a more authentic Korean experience.
A little more in-depth
Yeah.
for people who already know something about Korea too.
Yeah, good. Because you already know stuff about Korea too. 'Cause you're.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have my master's degree in Korean art and archaeology, and I'm a specialist in the Joseon Dynasty.
All right.
On top of that, we both lived here for a few years now, so
right.
we know a
Not
bit.
as long as you guys.
No,
But
working on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're already lifers.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you know, you know.
When you know, you know. Yeah.
What's interesting is it's each one of your shows focuses on one word too, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You can tell them.
Yeah, so we take one totally random word every week. Sometimes these are suggested by our audience, and sometimes they're just words that we come up with on the spot. For example, fence or paint or purple
Poop.
or poop.
Suddenly all P words.
And
Or
then
ghost.
go away
I was
or
like, yeah,
ghost.
with you guys. Great episode. Everybody listen.
And we go away separately and research our own stories, or not just stories, you know,
Historical information or places
tourist
to go
attractions or something like that,
related to that word.
and tell each other about them.
Yeah.
And tell all the listeners about them, like we
It's
did
fun.
with Ghost.
It's challenging.
Yes.
Our most recent word was marshmallow.
What did you have to say about marshmallows?
I talked about Saupuri, the shaman dance, because they wear the big puffy white dress. And you talked
Okay.
about,
What did I talk about?
what did you talk about?
I was going to talk about tofu because it's soft and white like marshmallows.
What did you talk about?
The closest would be a choco
Don't
pie.
remember.
I talked about that for our patrons. So as an exclusive podcast story, I did talk about choco pie.
Because marshmallow really didn't exist in Korea until
Oh,
recently, outside of a choco pie.
She talked about ancient desserts like chosun, the king's meal. You know, like the big royal feasts. Yeah, that's what she talked about.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. They got all the good food that now is considered the common food.
Yeah, literally.
Correct. The street food, like tteokbokki. It's like that
Yeah,
was
Yeah,
supposed to
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. And
Yeah.
now it's like $2.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it's full of sugar. Great.
Yeah.
Like a marshmallow.
Like a marshmallow. Right. Good. So then for this episode, this episode today, and we brought both of you on specifically, geez, I can't even talk. Specifically for this topic. And it's kind of a topic that we both sides we've talked about a bit in the past, but not in the form of a podcast. But the lives of women in the Joseon Dynasty. And there's certain aspects of that I talk about briefly on my tour. Things that Allie and you and I have spoken about before.
Yeah, right.
So, but Allie, you have done research on this. So can you give a little bit of background on that?
Yeah. So I haven't researched necessarily women as a whole in ancient Korea, but I specifically spent a lot of time doing some academic work regarding the commoner and slave women, particularly in regards to the Joseon court system, because I think it was really unique at the time in the way that it treated women. It kind of offered them an advantage where when you look at other countries at the time, women had no advantage in a court system whatsoever. So that was something that I wrote an academic paper on. But so I guess I would say that's my biggest area in terms of women. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just thought it was so fascinating.
So what were specifically some of the bringing within the theme of what we do, the darker aspect of things like that? What are some of the darker aspects of the lives of women in old Korea? Say maybe the Joseon Dynasty, since that's your specialty.
Well, I mean, slavery in general, I think this is something that a lot of people don't really realize about the Joseon Dynasty, is that a huge portion of the population was registered as a slave. So obviously that's dark, in and of itself.
Over half, right?
At one point it was about 70% of the population. Actually, at one point people started wanting to become slaves because they didn't want to pay for taxes. So they would sell their commoner status and then become a slave, which is really sad. But man, some of the darker stuff.
Well, yeah. If you're having trouble thinking, go back to that. They'd sell their commoner status. Who would buy it? Like they'd sell it to the government.
They would sell it to maybe slaves who had maybe somehow gotten money, had acquired some money, and they've been saving, and so then they moved up and they became a commoner, and then
it's like the Prince and the Pauper.
Yeah, exactly. It could be switching it around. Wow, it's that kind of happened in late Joseon when the merchant class was growing bigger and bigger, and people really didn't want to pay. They were getting more money, so they had higher taxes to pay, and they were like, "Oh crap! Like I don't want to do this." So they would, sell their status. But there are a lot of interesting stories about, in terms of my research, like with the court system, about female slaves and the things that they went through. Yeah, if you guys want, I can tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I guess I could just give kind of a brief overview.
Will there be a test?
Yes, there's actually a 10-question test at the end I've prepared for you.
One essay question.
One essay question, and then I also need it in Korean and English, so be ready. Well, I'll just start with like kind of a general overview. So the 17th and the 18th centuries of Joseon, people started to question the treatment of slaves, which were known as nobi, and also commoners, which were constantly promoted by Confucian ideals, this kind of hierarchy in society. So it had never really been questioned up until this point. Should we have slaves? Is slavery okay? But things started to change. And in particular, it started to change because there was this huge influx of petitions that were written by slave and commoner women. So it just started getting more attention in general. And Sean, I know that you've talked about this before, the idea of won. So
on my tour.
Yeah, right. How would you define won? It's a very hard thing to translate, I think.
Yeah. It is a hard thing to translate. And when I describe it, because I only discuss it briefly in the tour, I only give it about a 5-minute brief, and I share a story that's connected to it. I just describe it as resentment manifesting in a supernatural way.
Yeah, perfect.
So, and then, but how would you, in your research, how did you, or how would you define it?
That was basically exactly how I define it. So it's kind of an emotion that is kind of driven from a combination of grief and victimization and anger, and then in that in turn, if there's too much of a buildup of won in society, causes natural and social disasters. And so what was really interesting with won was that in the court system, if there were natural catastrophes like floods or a drought or something, the state would actually pardon and excuse prisoners because they felt like that would relieve the won in society and then maintain that cosmic harmony. So it was really directly affected to the court system, which I thought was super interesting. So then, because slave and commoner women were considered to suffer the most from won, from, grief and anger and pain, they were actually, obviously upper class women were also acknowledged just being a woman. Yay. Like we had,
great.
We had lots of won. But they had more because they were, living in worse conditions. So they got a lot of attention because the court thought if I kind of relieve these petitions from these women, then we won't have as much won. And that's kind of like where their advantage came in. Yeah, it's really interesting. There are some expressions actually that are like written in the court files, I guess, I don't know, the court documents at the time. One Yangban said, "A woman's grievance can bring 3 years drought." So if I'm sad, everybody look out.
Could you imagine having that power?
And then another guy said, "The grievance of a woman can bring a late spring frost and basically ruin our harvest."
Yeah.
Right.
So Actually, and then something that kind of demonstrates how important these women's suffering became is that, so the state originally required all court petitions to be written in classical Chinese. And obviously classical Chinese at the time is kind of this male cosmopolitan language, not accessible to most women. Most women, could not read or write. And in contrast, the vernacular Korean, the Hangul, was considered like, private, female, local, of course. It's not as highly valued as Chinese. But because this buildup of problems and sufferings from slave and commoner women started to appear in the courts, they actually legally changed it so that you could submit a petition in vernacular Korean so that they could help the women, which was kind of a big deal. It's specifically, really saying the women are more important in a way.
Do you recall which era, which reign that was in?
That was from the 17th century onwards. So
so pretty late. Yeah.
Yeah, later. Most of this was happening later.
I'm sorry, 17th century. Okay, middle point.
Middle point. Yeah,
mid.
right.
Okay, so maybe around mid during the Manchurian invasions, maybe.
Yeah.
Roughly that time.
Yeah, just after that.
Okay.
Just after Injo and into kind of Cheongjo time period. Yeah.
Okay.
But can I share some information about the petitions?
Sure.
This is where it gets a little dark, maybe.
Okay.
the things that happen to the women to cause them to put forward these petitions.
Not that, but actually, I do have a lot of stories about that. I have an article about this, so find it on our website. But this is actually some of the things they did. So some women, some female petitioners, you could write your petition, but most women didn't have, slave and commoner women, they didn't have the literacy to do that, or they didn't have the money to hire somebody to do that. So a lot of them would wait outside of the palace before there was going to be a royal procession. And the women were very commonly known to start screaming or sobbing or making these horrible, unnatural noises because they were trying to embody that wan and that suffering. And people believed that if their agony could be heard or seen by members of the palace, that they would immediately bring their case to court. And it was actually illegal to write a petition or hold any kind of banners written in your own blood. But the women believed that any kind of self-harm that they did would emphasize the sincerity of their pain. So, I mean, it's very frivolous to say that they had an advantage over men. I mean, men were definitely still more highly regarded in terms of the courts, but there are a lot of cases where women dressed up like men and then they self-harmed to get the attention. It's okay, there's a guy and he's carrying something written in blood. And then they found out it was a woman, but it was too late at that point.
Right.
There was one interesting situation where it's from the records from 1771. It was from a commoner woman we only know her name as Kim. And so what happened? So she disguised herself as a man and she went outside of the palace and she struck actually the palace gong, which is also a big no-no. But in this situation, the king doesn't care because it's some big wand building up. And she brought a petition written in her own blood that she cut from her hand, explaining the situation where her father was unjustly murdered by a magistrate in her home village. And because of everything she did, she got the attention of the king and she won the case immediately. The magistrate was relieved of his duty and he was put in prison. And yeah, she won just by doing all of that. So, but there are so many interesting cases like that. A lot of women did some very disturbing things like hurting themselves, and some women would get on the roofs and pretend to be dying on the rooftops and screaming these horrible noises. But yeah, I think it's so interesting. It's still difficult. They still have to do a lot to get the attention. But I think compared to Europe or the society where we come from, they wouldn't have even given them the time of day.
Right.
Because they were women.
Right.
But in Joseon, it's okay, this is actually more important, which is awesome.
And then ultimately because they feared Won.
Yeah, right. Because they feared Won and they knew that women, And women, I mean, sometimes if the court case was even about a man, it would actually be submitted by his wife, because even the husband knew my wife is more likely to get their attention than I am as a man, which is really fascinating.
She conveyed his one, didn't she?
She
and in
conveyed
turn,
his
that
one.
became her one because of Confucian values of how a wife is for her husband, and
Exactly.
She married into the one.
He married into her one.
They married into the one. Yeah.
It's incredibly sad that a woman had to go through such a terrible things to purely be noticed.
Yeah.
Like to purely be listened to, you know.
Some of the reports about the sounds they make are very like uncomfortable to read. I can't even imagine like going outside and being like, okay, I'm in so much pain. What kind of sound best represents that? And then like just being somebody else being in their house and like hearing that in the middle of the middle of the day, like what's going on?
Yeah, I'd be super freaked out.
Well, they were, and then they would do it so loudly that it would go to the palace and get the attention of the king.
Interesting. Yeah, that's harsh. Do you think any of that social concept, not necessarily wand, but the idea of screaming to get attention, to represent your anguish, has continued and has passed down and still exists in some form today?
Gosh. Yeah.
Well, they're big on protests here, right?
Huge on protests.
But the protests, I don't know. In my mind, the protests here that seem to work these days are the more peaceful, the more, kind of
Vigils.
Yeah, they don't
subdued.
Yeah, right. The more screaming protests that we see come from churches and stuff like that. So
from the older
conservatives.
generation.
Right.
But that would make sense because, they
Closer
lived in a very
to-
Confucian time.
Yeah, and there's more self-mutilation.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Quite a
right,
bit.
exactly.
the taxi driver. That's the one. When you say that, the first thing I think of.
Cutting off fingers.
Right.
Yeah.
Killing pigs. There was
that was
several
about-
years ago. Several years ago, there was a farmers group, an agricultural group of some sort. They were protesting something that
That's a
affected them, and
disturbing photo.
they tore a piglet apart. Right in Kwanghamun.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
it
a
was
lifelong
gross.
vegetarian, so I'm not about that. It's interesting because it's like it was very gendered at the time to do that.
Yes.
Men would not be doing that. But it's
Right.
interesting how the men, obviously they saw, okay, this works. And so I think the idea of like public, strong protesting and petitions, I think that's definitely led it to the way it is today.
When you said that was the first thing that popped in my mind is all the finger cutting for Dokdo and
Right. Right.
Well, the moment you said it, I thought about the taxi driver who set himself on fire.
and that too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And which one? There's been a couple of them.
Yeah.
Right,
Just in
right.
the past several,
Yeah.
like in the past 6 months, during the big protests last year, right? Is that what you're thinking against not against
Cacao
Uber,
taxi.
but the Cacao Taxi and
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Tada and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uber and
Yeah.
I think it was the Uber one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, terrible.
And it's interesting as well about them making noise. A lot of women also would play instruments. They would beat drums or they would beat gongs. And even now, when you go to the anti-Moon Jae-in protest, they always have the pungnori, the traditional dancers. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? But they just want to make noise,
Right.
people's
Just
attention. So
making a ruckus. Yeah. That's how they
Oh, and they do, don't they?
And
They really do.
They
and
sure
they say
do.
naughty words a lot.
Yeah.
how dare they?
I've noticed that. I've watched. Our tour walks through protest areas, so we saw from beginning to end the Park and
Right.
protest. And now then by
To end?
contrast,
Have they ended?
Yeah, I know. By contrast, I've been seeing the Moon Jae-in protests, and I noticed the Moon Jae-in protests, they tend to have much dirtier mouths.
They are super strongly, against him. And so I used to work in City Hall on Saturdays, and so I was teaching. It was impossible to teach anybody with all that sound going on.
Right.
But
And they built a hotel there.
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
like the most beautiful like place as well.
Right. Just across the street. Are there any? Maybe Hannah, you'll know. Are there any particularly tragic women from the past that you could tell us a little bit about?
Where
Well,
to begin?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know, but I know you could definitely do a series on this, or
Yeah.
You could, for sure.
Yeah.
I did a little research. I mean, as with kind of most of it, it's easier to find stories on the kind of the women who are higher up in society, right? So,
Right.
of course.
so maybe it might not be tragic in other people's opinions, but to me, I was just reading about all sorts of different people, and Lady Haegyang,
Oh,
to me, her life is really tragic.
have you read her memoirs?
I haven't read them.
Oh my gosh,
We spoke about her last week on our episode.
Oh,
Actually,
you did?
2 weeks ago, if you're
Crap.
listening.
so two weeks for listeners. Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So just to me, the way that she was, she tried to protect and help her husband through all his issues, and then in the end, she had to listen to like the rice box being ordered, and she had to listen to him being sentenced to death, and she had to listen to him struggling inside the box, and then she was just carted off. She couldn't do anything, and then she died 50 years after him. Like, to me, that's really tragic.
Quite late. Yeah.
And Jungjo was alive, and then think about
Right.
a little boy watching his father, die and not understanding it, and think about like having to deal with that. Oh my gosh.
So
That's right.
yeah, in my mind, that's tragic. I mean, it seems like it sounds like that to you guys too. Maybe not in the same tragic way that the lower class women lived, but still
Well, yeah.
tragic.
Yeah.
And then again in late Joseon, she's a woman I researched actually for our podcast, and Sean, I know you said you listened to the paint episode. Na Hae-seok.
Late Joseon.
She was like late Joseon. She was born late 1800s.
Okay.
Like
I guess that her prime work would have been
her prime was
colonization.
right after, but she was born late Joseon. Na Hae-seok, like just how she really was trying to fight for the modernization of women, that makes sense, right?
Modernization of the
Like,
respect for
updating
like
rights
for the
women.
modern woman, the new woman, as she called it, right?
Right.
And
How do you spell her name?
and then
The Cosmo woman.
how do you spell her name?
Yeah, you said it kind of fast. The what? The Cosmo?
Cosmo woman.
Yeah. Right. And then in the end, she was just brought down by her own work, and she was totally ostracized, and her, I can't get my words out properly. Sorry, this isn't a very good
It's very
expression
late
of what I'm
when
trying
we're
to think
recording
of.
this.
Right. Just, she was so for the kind of women becoming more than what they were. Okay. So women in like under the Confucian ideals were wives and mothers, right?
Right.
And so she wanted women to become more than that, and she wanted a better life for women, and she refused that the Confucian idea of a woman for herself. So, she was trying to work on bringing that to other women too. And in the end, her kind of expression of being that new woman is what brought her down, and she was just totally
ostracized.
Yeah, totally. And then she died alone. She wasn't allowed to see her kids, and she was her reputation was totally ruined.
She basically became a nun. Wait, so we kind of said her name really fast. Her name is Na Hae-seok, Nahyesuk.
It's,
Oh, or O-OK? UK?
EOK.
EOK. So, yeah.
Hey, so. Yeah.
She's a fantastic artist. One of the, like the first modern contemporary artists actually in Korea. But yeah, of course, you know, being a woman.
Yeah. So yeah, as
That's not what she's
a
remembered for.
as a feminist myself, like her story is super tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was a contemporary with Yu Kwan Soon.
Yes,
really powerful women at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's kind of martyred.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if maybe you both weren't living in Korea yet when they announced the 50,000 won note. Was that?
When was that?
When was that? I think, when was that, Joe? That was 2000.
Well, I'm pretty sure I brought them with me when I moved here.
We were not here. Yeah, we were. No.
What year was that?
2005. I was in elementary school.
Sorry.
Elementary school?
No. Wait.
No.
Well, yeah,
2005.
I graduated high school in 2012. You guys feeling old yet?
Just a little bit.
She said that, not me.
No, I didn't imply it.
I can't quite remember when that was when that came. I'm just going to search very quickly, but of course when it was announced that they're going to make a new bill, people were saying, it's like, well, how about we put a woman on it instead of all these aristocratic scholar men and
yeah, like nobody even knows about.
Right. Where, well,
Yi Huang,
yeah, and well, Sejong, of course. But the thing is, these are
he's okay. He's okay.
Yeah, like they're all people who've been made famous to the common classes in Korea since the establishment of a heritage association in the 60s, right? But God, I'm trying to find the year. So they wanted to have a woman. People were protesting. Let's put a woman on the
Awesome.
notes, and they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. So people are like, Yu Kwan Soon, she's the perfect person to put on the 50,000 won note. So people were saying, yes, let's do that, and people were kind of expecting that they would do it, but then no, they didn't.
Yeah.
Why? Well, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know, but at the time when that happened, I still can't find when that was. Anyone else can find it, but the person who's on it first is the mother of the person who's on the 5,000 won note.
Shim Saim-dang.
Shim Sam-dang, yeah, which is her it wasn't her real name. That was her
Posthumous name.
Posthumous name. It's like her artist name too, I think, right? Or was it a posthumous name? Yeah. So, and she's kind of like the perfect example of a great Confucian mother and a wife and things like that.
It's very Confucian.
Yeah.
All of the notes.
Yeah. Very much so. And people, a lot of my friends at the time, especially Korean women, they were pretty upset. They're like, why did they put her on there? And she's so out of place now, considering that there's a lot of movement in Korea where women are being empowered or have been empowered, and the feminist movement saying, is like, you know what? We're not going to get married. We don't want to have kids.
Right.
And there's nothing anyone can tell us otherwise that we have to do it. It doesn't exist anymore for us. So
no makeup. Short hair.
That's right. Shaving their heads. And
right. All those YouTube
all
girls.
Right. And so the woman on the 50,000 won note, Shin, Yi's mom, she's completely out of touch with modern Korea. She doesn't represent anything.
If I think of a Joseon woman that inspires me and that makes me feel like, I always think of Hwang Jinmi. I think like, she's this incredible writer. She was, as a female, basically courtesan, as a gisang, and she was so talented. I mean, yes, she was beautiful, but like, she just like knew what she wanted and she went for it. And I think she's like such a great representation. But because she was a gisang, I feel like she'll never, beyond Bill.
She's
a great writer.
She's pop culturally popular.
She's really popular all around.
But yeah, you're right. Like she wrote one of my favorite pieces of poetry in Korean history, where it it's long. It's the shorter pieces of poems of poetry that she wrote, and one part of it is, I'm paraphrasing it. If I'm walking, she's describing how she walks the doorstep of a certain person every night, but she does it in her dreams. And she says, I walk so often to your doorstep in my dreams that the steps to your door turn to dust. And it's very poetic the way it's written.
Her writing is so moving. And she was a big romantic, she would, I think the guy that she was in love with, like, even when he was married, she was like still writing stuff about, or like when he was engaged or something. I can't remember. But
I'm sure that's who that poem was about. That piece.
Yeah. It's actually interesting you mentioned that, because that goes back to what I was saying about like the court petitions, because a lot of people would think like, of course, upper class women would have an advantage, but out of all of the women, I would argue that they had the biggest disadvantage, because Kisang often were more literate and more well-spoken than the upper class women, because that was their job. They were supposed to write songs and entertain and write poetry. So yeah, a lot of Kisangs. Exactly. And get people's attention. So a lot of the court women, there are a lot of reports about when they wrote their petitions, they like never got acknowledged. And also because like they were like upper class women, people were like, what do you have to complain about? So yeah, even Kisangs like were way better off. So
yeah.
Just to jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
The 50,001 note was announced. Well, it was first issued in June 2009.
Okay, so that was 2005.
Okay, thank you.
I was in ninth grade.
Yeah, those are my first 10 years in Korea, so everything kind of blends together.
Right. I get that.
I'm going to try to find. I'm going to ask you a question, another one, just to keep things moving. But while we're talking, I'm going to try to find that actual piece of poetry by Hwang Jinmi, the one that I really like.
Yeah.
So, but while I'm doing that, what kind of commentary would you both have for the current condition for women's rights in Korea currently?
Oh man.
Well, that's something actually I wrote down in my notes. I wanted to bring it back to the mention of one, because I feel like there's so much. I feel like there's so much crap that women are dealt these days that
all the time.
That I kind of wondered, like when I was reading Allie's article earlier to get some background information for me to understand more. And I was like, well, maybe this is the reason why we're all having such a crap time.
Yeah.
Like if because of, I was just thinking like there's even in just a few years I've been here nearly 4 years now, but even in just these 4 years, there's been all this stuff with the molka, the spy cams.
Oh,
that's gotten huge.
I'm like paranoid to go to any bathroom, even now.
Yeah, I still look around every single time I go into a bathroom.
The toilet paper in any little hole, any nail hole even. I'm like, oh, there's a nail. Stick it. Even though I can see there's not a camera.
If I don't do that, I just put my middle finger up at the hole. I just like
that's good.
Yeah.
What did you used to do, Sean?
No. I used to work at Gimpo Airport, and I worked for Jeju Air. And and the women that I worked with, they told me there's holes in their bathroom, and that's a private bathroom. In order to get into that building, you need a pass. So
they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Every single bathroom you go into here.
Yeah.
So I thought about all the molka stuff. I thought about recently the Burning Sun scandal.
The rooms, the nth rooms. Oh, that's the worst one. For me, that is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard.
Was that earlier this year or was that late last year?
Earlier this year, I think, wasn't it?
Everything blends together.
You guys know about the nth rooms.
Yeah. That was last year.
I think it was this year.
Was it this year?
Burning Sun was last year. I think nth room was earlier this year.
Nothing happened this year.
Yeah, too much else is going on.
Exactly.
Pay attention. Yay!
I mean, even just as much as recently, like it's not as big as the other things, but did you hear the story about was she a lawmaker or someone in Korean Parliament? She wore a red dress.
Oh, yeah.
Very conservative red dress.
Yes.
And people just got people were up in arms about her wearing a red dress.
It was short as well. It was a little bit short, so it was
Right.
Just above her knee. Oh my goodness, a woman's knee.
And she's young too, isn't she? The youngest lawmaker currently.
Yeah, she is.
And the news anchor last year who wore glasses for the first time.
2017. That was
was it
3
that long
years ago.
ago?
Yeah,
Gosh.
that was 3 years ago. She wore glasses and everyone freaked out.
And those are just a few of the things that have happened in that we've heard about in the media. Then there's also all of the kind of all the other expectations that are put on women here, the beauty expectations that are put on women, and the how they're expected to be in the workplace and in
My boss told me I have to wear high heels. She said it's okay if you wear flats, but and she would always comment on my weight. My boss.
And this comes from us as foreign women. We're not Korean women. Korean women have it even worse.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And
not
so
held up to those expectations.
So I was thinking earlier, like maybe all the crap that everyone's been dealt this year. I was thinking about the coronavirus. I was thinking about and like the repeated kind of outbreaks of it, plus the typhoons that are hitting us now, and all the floods. It's the one has built up,
Nice.
That's the one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting take.
So what are you guys going to do about
just
it?
like
you got to start your protest.
the question is, what are you guys going to do about it?
I know. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So
that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my coworker who she's also American. She has naturally curly blonde, like Hannah's curly blonde hair. Mm-hmm. And my boss, she's a Korean woman, but she's very like conservative in those kind of expectations of how a woman should look. And she told her, she was like, you need to get a straight perm. Your hair is messy. And I stepped in and I was like, her hair is not messy. Her hair is curly. And I'm like, it is a natural thing for Western people, actually just people in general, to have curly hair.
Yeah.
And it was so hard for me hearing that coming from another woman, So it's not male to female. It's just all over the place, these kind of expectations.
Well, and again, on like we talked a little about tragic women from history, but I mean, I even thought about a tragic modern woman. I thought about Sully from FX.
Well, or Guhara.
Yeah. Sully especially I thought about because of it made me like thinking about the standards that are put on women. And Sully was marketed as this cute little cutesy pop singer, and then she wanted to change her image, and she stopped wearing a bra, and she was just vilified for it. And
then she was also like turned into this super sexualized person when she started to like be herself and be more free. Like all of her characters became super sexy, and
she was, but it was never celebrated. It was always,
or it was like gross,
vilified.
Yeah. She was really torn apart for it, but not just by mostly by women. And she tragically ended her own life because of it in the end. And it's so speaking of tragedy and tragic women, she has a tragic story for me too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Have you guys ever? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Have we ever what?
Have you guys ever seen or experienced anything? I mean, with your wives or anything that's kind of like surprised you?
Oh yeah. My wife got called a whore a bunch of times because we were together.
Just because of you're an interracial couple?
Yeah. So she'd be called a whore by older Korean men mostly. So yeah, it happened several times. Yeah.
Wow.
We were already. Well, happened maybe a couple times when we were dating, and then and a couple times, like, it wasn't the norm, but thing is you don't know what people are thinking either, right?
Right.
So, but people who are vocal about it are mostly old drunk addishes. So older drunk men,
usually.
and they call her like Nichinyan and crazy bitch and stuff like that. Yeah, look at her and look her up and down, and then look at me and swear under their breath. Not even brave enough to say it out loud, like
Of
to our
course.
face,
No,
to our
of course,
faces.
definitely not.
One time we were on the subway, and we were both sat down, and we were already married, and we were sitting down. I was on my wife's right side, so we were linking arms, and we were just chatting. And then across, like whatever we were talking about, we finished, and we both just kind of looked away. The conversation was done. You do just kind of maybe look at see how far along, what station you're at, some stuff like that. And then my wife noticed the guy sitting across from us, an older guy, and he was giving her the looks like that, and he was pointing at me, and I didn't see it at first, but he's pointing at me, and he's doing the cross like that, X, pointing at me.
Too late.
And then she lifted up
Wait.
her hands, and she had her wedding ring on. She wiggled her fingers, wiggled her ring like that, and she's like that. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And then she told me, and then I looked at him and I laughed. I was like, "Ha ha."
I mean, did that guy
We're
expect
happy
that to
you're
be
not.
effective? He's like, well, thanks for the advice.
Yeah, right.
Oh, actually, yeah. I'm gonna just read off at the next station. And
Like,
Oh my
okay.
God, now, yeah.
Of course.
Gotta get your approval, sir. Thank you.
Well, that reminded me of I was on a date with a Korean man, and the guy at the table, it was an old guy at the table next to us, and he did the exact same thing. He walked outside, and I was the one that could look out the window, and he just was like this constantly, like
Crossing his arms.
like big up and over his head, and
To the guy.
straight
The
up
guy you were on a date with.
to both of us.
Yeah.
really?
And he
Just
was like
curves his
saying
lips,
all
making
this
an X,
stuff
like-
under his. He was
Yeah.
saying all this stuff under his breath, like while we were sat talking together, and it was just the fact that it was the arms.
What did you do?
I just went, bye.
Bye. Enjoy your sad, pitiful
Waved him off,
life.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You sure?
I
You
used to
sure
feel
you weren't at one of those
I
all you
think
can
I-
eat
think
Brazilian
I flipped him off.
buffets, and he was just saying, "I don't want any more meat.
Don't eat the food.
I don't want any more.
Right.
Done.
You'll get
don't
so
serve
sick."
me any more meat."
You just have to feel pity for them. When I experienced stuff like that, I used to get so angry, and then I was like, actually, I feel so sad that you have to live your whole life like this, hating without any reason. So
Yeah, because it's not going to change.
right.
Yeah. It just has, yeah. They're not going to change. Yeah.
But
So.
the society's not going to change for you, for the
Oh, for that
Exactly.
person, yes,
For
right.
them,
right.
yeah.
For the Adishi, yeah. So, just quick. I tried to find. I'm looking through my book of the poetry, and I can't find. I know.
Oh, yeah, I
I
forgot
have-
about that.
Yeah, sorry. This
book
is that one.
of poetry.
Yeah, and I
Yay!
can't find it.
Go to
I got my
Bangkok.
Huang Jini collection, but I can't find this one poem. So the one that I was talking about. So
While you,
sorry.
Call yourself a fan.
gosh.
Sorry, I know. Oh, here's that's my dog ate the book, so he may have.
My doggy may have
I'm sure
eaten it.
he actually did. So everyone who can see the video, if you're a patron, you
Hey.
can see that part of the book is eaten.
Wow.
So
I love that.
came home one day, but I think this is. There is one of the ones here. The poem is bidding farewell to Joseon. So, so it's that one, but it's not the same one I was thinking of. But
Does it start
But
with
she has
roses
great-
or red?
it starts with
Roses
flowers.
are
With
red,
Paulonia leaves
violets are
fall on
rose.
the moonlit pond, and Moonlit Pond is the name of this collection, actually.
Moonlit
And then it's great stuff. Like we have lost count of the wine cups we have emptied.
Oh, I know that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one.
this is a really
Sounds
good
like
thing.
me
This
right
is
now.
one of
Yeah.
this is one of those things that when I was first taking Korean history that really just stood out in my mind, and my professor was talking about. I was trying to track down where they did this, but yeah, they during these parties they would just sit next to these like concrete canals, like shallow canals, and they would float cups of wine down and you could just pick it up and then they would do
Yes.
poetry contests where it's only
Yes.
like a line of poetry, put it on the stream, and someone down the stream would add to the poem.
Yeah. That was in China as well. Or what they would do they would like float a cup down to a certain point, and then like all the poets would have to write a poem within that time, and then see who was the best poet.
Bring that back.
Sounds
Someone
like a
bring that
line of
back.
poetry, like sushi bar.
That was
Yeah, let's bring it back,
also-
guys.
It was also
Yeah.
a Japanese tradition as well for
Okay, East Asia.
for haiku. So
I wonder who
Is it-
started it.
I
Yeah,
saw,
well, there
I saw
was a
somewhere
picnic.
it looked like an empty canal, and I'm trying to remember where I saw it. I think it was maybe at Cheonggyong. I think I saw it.
Oh.
Changi.
Isn't there a tiny little like stream in Cheonggyong?
But it was
I can't
empty.
remember.
It was empty, and I think I read on the sign it
right.
was used for that. But I kind of want to say Anachi Pond, and
Wow, they wrote that on the They wrote that on the
was
sign.
it in Gyeongju? In
Anachi?
Anachi?
There is a there is a
was,
stream. Yeah, there is a stream that goes right from the top of the hill all the way down and round. You remember we
There was,
walked the other way.
there was a traditional festival, or it wasn't really a festival, but it was something that people observed every year during Chosun. It was called Dungo, and it would happen on the 9th
what is the
lunar
name?
month.
What is the name of it again?
of the Dungo.
No,
Dungo.
We were
Not
so close to
Dungo.
finding our poop festival.
I was thinking a poop joke.
But it's Dung, like Tungsan,
Five
Tungsan.
Tung-
means
Tungo.
mountain going, right?
Mountain going.
Yeah, and they would get together, and the whole point was to watch the autumn leaves and to get drunk and read poetry.
That sounds
That's-
awesome.
I mean, that's basically what we do.
So
Namsan was a popular spot for that.
It's so civil.
We're
You need to bring this back.
living.
Well,
Yeah, we.
Sean has a
Such a
pool.
much soul.
What's up?
Sean has a pool.
I have a pool. Yeah.
You have forget this poetry contest. You have a pool.
I've got the wine.
It's a kiddie
Party
pool,
at Sean's.
But we
It's a kiddie
can
pool.
float stuff in the pool. And
I know lots of
John.
little streams and stuff hidden away in the mountains. Up in
Oh my
the
gosh, that would be
parks
so much fun.
and everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
You
could
don't want to
make
get
a
too
wind for
far
Windsor.
up into the mountain though, because that's going to be a hell of a hike back down if you're
After the
stumbling
wine.
after
Especially
the
if
mountain.
you're flying
Yeah.
up there to float cups.
We have a view of Namsan from our balcony. Why don't we just
We don't have a
view it from
we don't
afar?
have a stream. Bring your kiddie pool over.
Right.
Funny.
So anyway,
Anyway,
that was great. Thank you for that. That was
It wasn't
excellent.
quite as dark, maybe, but
No. I think it's plenty dark. Like we can talk about how to ward off ghosts and things like that. That's all folk culture and folklore, but this is reality. What we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
Wan is it's based on that was a folk belief that the fact that they were actually causing floods very likely was untrue. It's a folk belief, but
But we did have a flood recently, so
we did. We had several. I think.
I was having a bad
Right.
day as well, so it could be me.
Yeah. So
you want to make it
But-
darker? We can try and make some one sounds for you if you want.
Let's start groaning to
I'm
leave the video.
gonna take my headphones off first. Yeah. But yeah, no, this is reality. So it's
Yeah.
actual darkness, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Ooh, gritty. Yes.
green dark.
Keep it
But-
real. On the
but
dark side of
actually,
this whole podcast.
yeah. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah,
It was
I'm
great.
now
There's
sitting
so
here
much
thinking about the
content.
lives of
We'll have you on again,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
So we'll have you
tell
on
us
for like a
again
part two.
Where everyone can
Thanks.
find you. Online, not in
Right.
person.
Oh yeah. Our address is www.what'shanyourmind.com or on our Instagram podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts, Facebook. And if you really, really enjoyed this last hour, you can become a patron on our Patreon.
Yes.
I don't know about that, but it's all under the same name. What's on your mind? And find it soon because we might have a name change.
see.
Dun, dun,
really?
dun.
Yeah.
We're thinking.
Okay.
We're thinking. It's a little long.
Things are in the works.
In the works. But thank you guys so much for having us.
Yes.
No,
it was fun. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
We will do a part 2, I think, at some point in the future.
Amazing.
Talk about more, and maybe we'll come back on your
Great.
podcast in the future, and we can talk
Definitely. Yeah.
about we think of a word. Think of a really hard word. Unko. the mountain, the autumn festival, getting drunk in the mountains in Korea. So to close up, just don't forget that we are the Dark Side of Seoul. So you can find us everywhere, darksideofseoul.com, and social media, all over Facebook and Instagram. And we are somewhat on Twitter, kind of, sort of, but it's me and Joe's on there, Zen Kimchi. I'm Sean.Morrissey. And we do post about the...
Follow you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll follow you.
Yeah.
So we do have the tour, but we're kind of quiet right now because of the problems that we're experiencing with the spike in the coronavirus. Stay tuned for
We'll
an update
keep you
on that.
updated on the Facebook site.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And our comic book. Joe, where's our comics on the website?
Darksideofsoul.com. Just find everything at darksideofsoul.com. I'll put everything
Absolutely.
on the front page. Easy to find. We got reviewed recently, and it's been great. And
I have a couple of... Well, Joe and I have an interview doing together on... by the time this comes out, it'll be done.
It'll be long in the past, but we'll get more interviews.
I have two upcoming podcast interviews that I'm doing next couple of weeks, and I'll link to those on our social media.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for stopping by.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Entertaining us with lovely dark tales of
Teaching us.
lovely ladies.
The lives of women.
The lives of ladies.
I'm going to go lay down and think about how crap it is to be a woman.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to lay down and think about how great it is.
It is. It's pretty great.
We're all great.
Look at the yin and yang right there with Hannah and Elle.
Yeah, there we go.
Pretty much sums us up.
Yeah, I was like, if you didn't want to know about us, that was it.
Lots of yang right there. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
That's why we go so well together.
Okay.
Try to be a middle-aged male sometime. It's great.
I wish. I'd love to try that.
Actually, no, I do not want to.
We can only
What are you
fail
trying
up.
to
Yep.
I like that.
Yep. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Until next time, stay spooky.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Oh, where are all of them? Where are my cats?
Maybe we'll do the next one at my place.
Yeah, Hannah's moving, so we won't have any cat distractions anymore.
Great. We also like to thank our patrons, Joel Bonomini, Shaaron Cullen, Angel Earl, Jamie Staley. If you want to be a patron, you can be a patron too at patreon.com/darksideofsoul.